Hi, Rob from Cardinal Creations. I'm the service tech here, and this is just a quick video about selecting the right spool cap. So a lot of phone calls that we get, people think that they're having tension issues, but in reality, 8 times out of 10, they're actually having threading or thread path issues. Most of the time while we're sewing, everybody's attention is focused down here. They're trying to make a straight seam, and that's completely understandable. Nobody barely ever looks to see what's actually happening up here. So when the problem happens down here, the fabric's bunching up, the thread's breaking, everybody thinks it's here. A lot of times it's right up here. And I'm going to show you how to select the right spool cap so that we'll try to eliminate as much of the problem up here as possible. So here you can see we've got different diameter thread spools here, and I've put roughly what size spool cap you should be using with it. It also matters how you put the cap on. For example, with a bigger spool like this, we're going to take and we're going to put it on the machine. Now when you put the cap on, it doesn't go on like this. You want to go on with the dished part facing the spool of the thread. You want to put it on there tight enough so that the thread's not really rocking back and forth, but you also want it to spin smoothly. The whole point of this spool cap is that it's got to keep the thread from falling down in between the spool pin and the actual spool of thread. This is where we start to get tension issues. It builds up, and then all of a sudden it'll let go. Builds up and then lets go. Sometimes it'll clear itself. This is one of the tricky things where we think our tension is inconsistent, and this is actually what's happening up here, totally out of our line of sight. Next spool size down, same thing. We're going to put the spool on, pick our next size cap that most closely matches the diameter, or I should say circumference, diameter of our spool. Put it on there. And again, what we want, don't leave it like that where you can get movement like this. We want to take and we want to push it in fact, bottom it out, and then back off just a bit and make sure that that spool is still capable of rotating. It might not always rotate. Sometimes they spool off like this, but you want it to be able to, if it has to clear a loop. Next spool size down, one more smaller cap. Now, not every machine comes with 3 different size spool caps. Some of them only come with 2. And always go to the little bit bigger. You never want to have the kind of a position where, just for example, you don't want to put a spool cap on like that. What's going to happen is that there's sharp edges on the edge of these spool caps. If they aren't that way from the factory, they will get that way over time. Your thread's going to catch into those, and that's going to cause all kinds of tension issues, sometimes even breaking your needle down here. So if you can't match exactly what your diameter is, always go for the biggest one. Say that if you didn't have one that fit on there like that, don't use this one. Use the bigger one, and the same rule applies. Push it down there all the way, back it off a little bit just so that it'll spin. And now for an open end spool. These, you can put this spool cap on there, but honestly you really don't need it, because anytime that your spool cap, and I'll just show it when it's on the machine, anytime that your spool cap is a little bit bigger than that, right around there, you see how it's got that gap? You've got the chance to have your thread drop down into there, get wrapped around the spool, and now it's not pulling off correctly. These spools were intended to just feed directly off of the end of them. So a lot of times you just put a little spool keeper in there so that it doesn't pull off. And now you can see the way that it just glides right off. So if you have an older machine, the older machines will generally work well with these kind of spools. But when you put these kind of spools on there, they don't work so great, because these spools were really meant to be end feeding off like that, like with a vertical thread stand or something. If you try and put one of these spools on here, you're going to have problems. It looks like it's going okay, but as it goes, a twist will develop in this because the spool is spinning this way and it's meant to feed off of this. There are different things you can buy online if you want to use these types of spools on machines that have a vertical thread post like this, where they just take and they lay stuff over on the side. Kind of like this machine came already set up like that. It's capable of doing either spool, but generally speaking, if you're using an older machine with a vertical spool, you'll want to be using a spool like this. Thanks for taking the time to learn with us on this whole thing. I hope that I was able to impart some good information. And stay tuned as we go through more about how to wind your bobbin and actually how to thread your machine, why thread path matters. See ya.